I can't believe it. If anyone would have told me that we would have already had an assassination attempt on a country's leadership and a country on the brink of civil war, which most conflict watchers did not hold as a high risk area, in the same week, also the first full week of 2020, I would not have believed it. Anyway, before we get into it, in this Flashpoint 2022 conflicts to watch: water security, Haiti, Kazakhstan, and NATO. At the beginning of the week, Crisisgroup published a list of 10 conflicts to watch: wars in Ethiopia and Yemen, a looming humanitarian catastrophe in Afghanistan, Myanmar's deepening political crises, global powers in a standoff over Ukraine, Taiwan, and Iran's nuclear program, Israel-Palestine, Haiti, and Islamist insurgencies in Africa. Now, I would invite everyone to have a look at their highly professional and user-friendly interactive map. Crisisgroup does not pay me to say this. One conflict to watch in 2020 particularly stood out for me. Those were the Islamist insurgencies in Africa, specifically those in Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Nigeria, Congo, Somalia, and Mozambique. So, Crisisgroup says that since 2017, when the Islamic State lost its so-called caliphate in the Middle East, Africa has suffered some of the world's most ferocious battles between states and jihadis. Islamist militancy on the continent is nothing new, but revolts linked to the Islamic State and Al-Qaeda have surged in recent years. Weak states struggle against militant factions across vast hinterlands where central governments hold little sway. Parts of the Sahel have been spiraling bloodshed, mostly due to the fighting involving jihadis, whose reach has extended from northern Mali to the country's center into Niger and across rural Burkina Faso. Boko Haram's insurgency has lost swaths of northeastern Nigeria it controlled some years ago, and the movement is believed to have fractured. Yet, splinter groups still wreak tremendous harm around Lake Chad. In Eastern Africa, Al-Shabaab, the continent's oldest surviving Islamist rebellion, remains a potent force, despite more than 15 years of efforts to defeat it. The group holds large parts of Somalia's rural south, operates shadow courts, and extorts taxes beyond those areas, and occasionally mount attacks in neighboring countries. Africa's newest jihadi front, two fronts actually, in northern Mozambique and eastern DRC, are also troubling. Insurgents who claim a new Islamic State province in Mozambique's Cabo Delgado region have stepped up attacks on security forces and civilians. Nearly 1 million people have fled the fighting. Militants have loose ties to Islamic State networks that stretch both up the continent's east coast and into Congo's war-torn east. There, another Islamist group, a faction of the Allied Democratic Forces, who we have also covered before on the show, Ugandan Militia that has long operated in Congo, now declares itself an Islamic State affiliate. It launched attacks in the Ugandan capital of Kampala last November. Mozambique's government, which long resisted outside involvement in Cabo Delgado, finally agreed last year to let in Rwandan troops and units from the Southern African Development Community, the SADC. Those forces have reversed insurgent gains, though militants appear to be regrouping. Rwandan and SADC forces are at risk of a protracted war. In Somalia and the Sahel, Western impatience could be decisive. Foreign forces, the EU-funded African Union mission in Somalia, or AMISOM, and French and other European forces in the Sahel help keep jihadis at bay. Yet military operations often alienate locals and further erode relations between them and state authorities. There's little to show for years of foreign efforts to build up indigenous armies. Malian colonels have seized power in Bamako twice in the space of just over a year, while the region G5 Sahel force, comprising troops from Mali and its neighbors, also struggles against jihadis. Chad recently also pulled out some of its troops from the force fearing upheaval at home. As for the Somali security forces, units caught up in the political bickering often shoot at each other. If foreign efforts wind down, battlefield dynamics would undoubtedly shift, perhaps decisively, in the militants' favor. In Somalia, al-Shabaab could seize power in Mogadishu much as the Taliban did in Kabul. Intervening foreign powers are caught as they were in Afghanistan, unable to achieve their goals but fearful of what will follow if they exit. For now, they appear set to stay. What is important here is that the military-centric approach has mostly spawned more violence. If foreign powers don't want the same dilemma haunting them in a decade's time, they need to prepare the ground for talks with militant leaders. A chart, also shared by Crisisgroup, concerning Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso indicates a spike in number of civilian fatalities caused by jihadist groups since 2020, with 2021 having the largest number of casualties to date, approximately 1,300, whereas 2 years ago this number was closer to 800, and again 2 years earlier this number was closer to 50. On the same day, so still on Monday, Statista published a post concerning water scarcity using data by the Economist Intelligence Unit. According to the UN, quote, when a territory withdraws 25% or more of its renewable freshwater resources, it is said to be water stressed. According to the UN, quote, when a territory withdraws 25% or more of its renewable freshwater resources, it is said to be, quote, water stressed, end quote. Globally in 2018, just 18.4% of total renewable freshwater resources were being withdrawn. Regionally, though, there are already places experiencing serious issues. Northern Africa has critical water stress levels, while Central and Southern Asia were classed as having high water stress. On the other hand, 31% of the global population remained at the no stress level. As projections from the World Resources Institute for 2040 show, the problem is expected to become more widespread. Reporting by the Economist Intelligence Unit states, quote, quickening urbanization, population growth, climate change, and economic development are placing pressure on water systems, end quote. According to the Outlook, 44 countries face either extremely high or high water stress levels by 2040, as warned in the Economist report, quote, at the same time, rising sea levels place a growing number of geographies, particularly in East and Southeast Asia, at a higher risk of flooding, which can overwhelm sanitary systems and pollute drinkable water sources, end quote. Now also, two noteworthy events over the weekend on Saturday and one on Tuesday. The current Prime Minister of Haiti survived what was believed to be an attack on his life, and a Colombian was charged with assassination of former Haitian president. Unidentified gunmen, probably most likely associated with Haitian gang, tried to kill Haitian Prime Minister Ariel Henry during an event on Saturday to mark the anniversary of the country's independence. The incident happened as Mr. Henry took part in a ceremony at a church in the northern city of Gonaives. A video posted online showed the Prime Minister and his entourage scrambling towards their car amid intense gunfire. The security situation has deteriorated significantly since the assassination of President Jovenel Moise last July. Mr. Henry has pledged to crack down on powerful gangs that are blamed for a wave of kidnappings and for seizing control of much of the gas distribution around the country, causing severe fuel shortages. The Prime Minister's office said, quote, bandits and terrorists, end quote, were behind the assassination attempt, and that arrest warrants had been issued for the suspects. The office accused the group of hiding behind walls to attack the convoy and of threatening the bishop by surrounding the church, according to the Associated Press. One person is said to have been killed, while 2 others were injured in a gunfight between armed men and security forces, according to local media. Now, Mario Antonio Palacios, a former Colombian military officer, is charged with conspiracy to commit murder or kidnapping outside the United States and providing material support resulting in death, knowing or intending that such material support would be used to prepare for or carry out the conspiracy to kill or kidnap. As alleged in the complaint, which was unsealed Tuesday the 4th, these charges relate to the July 7, 2021 assassination of the former president of Haiti, Jovenel Moise, in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. As alleged, the defendant and others, including a group of approximately 20 other Colombian citizens and a group of Haiti-based dual Haiti-American citizens, participated in a plot to kidnap or kill the Haitian president, with one co-conspirator, traveling to the United States on June 28, 2021, to, among other things, provide other individuals with a written request for assistance to further the plot relating to the Haitian president. As alleged in the complaint, while the plot initially focused on conducting a kidnapping of the president as part of a purported arrest operation, it ultimately resulted in a plot to kill the Haitian president. The complaint affidavit alleged that on July 7, 2021, Palacios and others entered the president's residence in Haiti with the intent and purpose of killing President Moise, and in fact, the president was killed. Now, I am convinced that anyone who is interested in current affairs and international security specifically may already be aware of what has happened over the week in Kazakhstan. I must say, quite a sad start of the new year for what has been one of the most stable countries in Central Asia for several decades. A stability that, in my opinion, can only be seen as a facade. Now, this is my interpretation of the facts, but they are based off what I have read and heard so far. Soaring gas prices were the catalyst to a population that simply no longer is content with the way the country is run, high degrees of corruption, and an elite living a lavish lifestyle, perceived as at the expense of the domestic population. Following several days of growing protests, the Kazakh government resigned, but still, for the protesters, this was not enough. First figures indicated 12 people died, 10 security forces dead. This number grew to 18 dead security forces, 750 allegedly wounded. The most recent figures indicate 26 dead demonstrators, while 5,800 were arrested. And I think most recently, like a couple hours ago, I saw some figures that over 100 people were killed in the Almaty region, the region of the capital, and more people had died. I'll make sure to share this link in the description, also in the video. Throughout the week, President Tokayev declared a state of emergency, ordered a complete internet blackout, and a curfew was instated. The Kazakh president denounced the acts of demonstrators as terrorists. Moreover, it is believed that he had instructed his security forces to shoot sharp on protesters. Approximately 2,500 troops from Russia, Kyrgyzstan, Belarus, Tajikistan, and Armenia were deployed through the Collective Security Treaty Organization, a post-Cold War regional alliance between former Soviet states concerning defense and security. About 6 hours ago, the president claimed that the situation had stabilized, and tomorrow, January 10th, Monday, will be a day of national mourning. Now, in my opinion, it is too soon to know the precise toll. Due to the blocking of information and internet connectivity, it may be safe to say that we will never know, or at least it will be very hard to know, as it appears that the government intends to block any outside involvement that is not in its own immediate interest. On Friday, foreign ministers of NATO held a virtual meeting, chaired by the Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg. The meeting is said to have revolved around security developments surrounding Ukraine and Russia. Following the meeting, Stoltenberg answered reporters' questions during a press conference. Stoltenberg reaffirmed NATO's commitment to the open door policy as one of NATO's main principles. This open door policy is basically what allows other countries that are not part of NATO to join the alliance if their political and defense reforms are in line with those of NATO member countries. Stoltenberg also held that NATO is prepared if diplomacy fails. Quote, "We stand by our decisions of the Bucharest summit. when it comes to Ukraine and Georgia. We support help on their way towards further Euro-Atlantic integration with reforms, practical and political support. And I strongly believe that it's important to send a message that reforms are important, partly because it is a way to meet NATO standards, but this also makes the societies of Ukraine and Georgia stronger. So resilient and functioning societies are also less vulnerable to interference from Russia. So we will continue to provide support and continue to work with Ukraine and Georgia as they move forward. End quote. Now that the first full week of 2020 is behind us, I can only be curious about what is next. What will it be? Aliens invading an asteroid? Maybe nuclear war? Let's hope none of that. But in the case that it does happen, it will be covered all on this channel right next week. Thank you all. Have a nice evening. And see you all next week.